All right. Testing. Let's see if this is good to go. I almost feel, I don't know, weird having this style because I don't want it to seem like it's such a, I don't know. This style is for fun, and I don't want it to seem like I'm making fun of people who have Morgellons. The image that I use, which you can actually see here because I posted it on my Instagram, is this, like how I would feel looking at it, but I think it looks a little bit, I don't know, I guess I realize it's a little bit funky looking. So I don't know, I might be taking this down as we're doing this, but just please don't think that I'm trying to make fun of this condition, because I think people that have Morgellons are fighting sort of an uphill battle, okay? So we're going to talk a bit about this, but I just want to make sure that you guys are here, you're able to hear me. Go ahead and let me know. In the meantime, and get some of that sweet energy. By the way, what do you guys think of the size of these monster cans? Hello again, Analyze the Atheist. Can I call you a double A? I don't know. But welcome back. I'm glad you were able to join us. What do you think? Should we change the style while we're waiting for more people to join us? I don't know. Because I could always change the thumbnail. For later, maybe that'll be better for this. I'm not 100%. Plus my head's starting to hurt, so maybe that's enough of a reason for me to just change it up, yeah? Call you Terry. Hello, Terry. All right. You're not that Terry that was sending me all those weird messages before, were you? I hope not. If so, I hope you have altered that, so we won't be doing that again. Is this it? Is this the hair that we want? Still waiting for everybody to join us. All right. So I think I should try a podcast. You want to let me know about that before we get started? Because I don't want to explain some of this and then have to re-explain it because there was like 2 people in here. Let's see. I don't really think this COVID conspiracy theory is the same as Morgellons. It's kind of, it's more like some kind of synthetic parasites that bury into your body to take over your nervous system. Now, I would actually say that could be similar to Morgellons. I would. Yeah, I would say that works very well with Morgellons, actually. Wow, I hope that wasn't me. Well, if you would remember, because that person would always start by apologizing to me for their previous statements and then continue to make them. So if you don't remember, then that wasn't you. All right. So just the 2 of you, that's all right. What are we doing? So let's just try to get some of this podcast stuff hammered out while we're waiting for everybody else to join us. And while we do that, or after we do that, we can just kind of cut this half for this section of the video once it goes live or gets saved. So, thoughts about podcast stuff. What do I do to make a podcast? I've never even looked into it. I was just like, oh, podcast, that's stuff for people that's not me. I don't know why. I mean, podcasts would be great. Then I don't have to get pigtails starting to pull, huh? Yeah, I thought I could make it work and have like a fun hairstyle that wasn't a wig, because the wig pinches on my head. That ain't it. So I did take my medication. It is time to take my medicine anyway, so I did take my medication while we were on a break. Caffeine helps pain medication work faster. At least that's what I've read. I like this format. Why fix something that I broke? I don't think that I would be fixing it necessarily, Signostic, but I thank you for the feedback. I'm thinking something like Telltale does, where he makes a video, but it also gets uploaded as a podcast. So I don't know. Literally get apps that will do it all for you. I like that. I'm not the best tech person. The only reason that other people think I'm a tech person is because I ask for help and then I Google stuff, and those other people do not. But anybody who's actually a tech person is like very obvious that I'm not a tech person. So they're just like, oh, okay, well, at least you know how to do basic troubleshooting, so that's good. Let's see if you can find a cross-sectional image of a sticking plaster. There's an adhesive outer, the fibrous absorbing layer, then the inner porous plastic layer. If you remove the inner layer, right. So let's go ahead and just kind of explain what Morgellons is, what Morgellons could be. And Chris, I'm glad you were able to join us for this one. Sorry that you're not feeling good though. You've been feeling pretty poorly. So let me know if we can do anything like thoughts and prayers. That's always one. Or I'll send you a DoorDash or something. I don't know, some food, or I don't know. Did you check out the videos of the filaments moving it? So yes, thank you, Signostic. So I do have some stuff lined up for us, and one thing I didn't want to do was look at too many things. One of the things I like to do is watch stuff or read stuff for the first time with you guys. Part of the reason I like doing that is because, number one, I love channels that are super prepared and they've got all of this stuff ready to go and ready to talk to you about. One thing I want to do is talk about stuff like, okay, maybe I don't have all the information, so how do we proceed? And what are some things that maybe I've heard about before or could bring together with this and discuss it? But the second thing is also how to look stuff up. So that's one thing I like to talk about, especially with my students, that if we're talking about a new concept, how do we look stuff up so that we can find information on it that isn't like, how do we know what's a good source and what keywords to look for and that kind of thing. So I wanted to sort of explore this. I did find, I think it's the video you are talking about. I also went to something that TD Mage had recommended, and this might be the video. I'm not sure if this is the video you were talking about, but I think I found one here. So on Instagram, I had posted a hashtag for Morgellons, and so I wanted to go there as well. So I guess first of all, we should talk about what is Morgellons, what Morgellons could be. All right, so Morgellons is a bit complicated as an illness because there's two very different perspectives on it. There's the perspective of the person with Morgellons, and there's the perspective of the diagnosing individual. The perspective of the person with Morgellons is, for some reason, which depends on the person, they believe there are fibrous materials coming out of their body. Those materials can be found on top of the body, barely stuck in, coming out of open wounds, or hidden under like that first or second kind of dermal layer. So that skin layer, it's under the skin, but they can kind of see it, so they're able to pick it out. From the other perspective, there doesn't seem to be much evidence that the stuff that's coming out of their body is coming out of their body in some cases. So for example, a patient might bring items, like a small collection of items, and say, doctor, these came out of my body. Now, the doctor doesn't necessarily believe that the patient is lying, but that perhaps the patient isn't really sure if those actually came out of their body and assumes they came out of the body. One thing we talked about in the previous video is there's also a skin or a condition. Gosh, I should have looked it up, but I know if I looked it up, I wouldn't be able to pronounce it correctly anyway. It's a condition where your body grows hair in places that aren't common for hair to grow, or if you have like you grow too much hair, like hair all over your face, for example. But I suppose that would be places where hair doesn't usually grow. So for somebody that has maybe that condition, you can get hair growing in places that are not common. So something like that, you would pull out, it would come out of your skin, and you would wonder, why is this even here? And you'd be right in wondering that. But the next step, of course, is ask your doctor, get it analyzed. What is it? As opposed to trying to Google it, and then maybe coming up with something like Morgellons. So Morgellons is one of those things that's it's listed, if you try to Google it right away, it's listed as a self-diagnosed condition. Now, I do want to, again, not say that the people that have Morgellons are quote-unquote crazy, and definitely not saying that they're liars, but that perhaps they might be misunderstanding a totally normal phenomenon, maybe not abnormal, but maybe not common phenomenon that's going on with their body, or misunderstanding some cause and effect. So that ends up getting turned into this, like a special condition versus a more common condition. So again, I don't think these people are lying, and that's kind of why I kind of took my hair down. I didn't want to also make it look like I was making fun of the people that have Morgellons. Okay. Let's see. So we're sending positive vibes to Chris. All right. Let's see. Primary sources. Yes, we want primary sources. Those Reddit videos are what I've seen. I've seen others too. If you take minoxidil, you can get hair growing in unusual places. For example, your nose tip. That's a great example. And I had mentioned too, for some people, if you are already kind of set up mentally to believe something, perhaps you already believe in a conspiracy theory, you've read something about this, and you also happen to get an ingrown hair, significant ingrown hair, after you've had this COVID test. When you pull it out, you're going to say, this is exactly what I've seen. So rather than saying, again, that's interesting, what is it? The person comes out, pulls it out and says, wow, this is exactly what I saw earlier online. This must be evidence of that thing. Okay, so that's where we want to be careful. Whenever we find some really interesting evidence, we don't know what it's evidence for all the time. We know that it is evidence of something, but what is that something? So I let my students know that whenever something interesting happens, it's an interesting thing that happened. We can't really come up with a story for that yet. Maybe if we get more information, maybe there's already an answer and we don't actually know it. But right now, if I pull a fiber out of my body, that's a fiber I've pulled from out of my body. I don't actually know why it's there, what it is, what it's made out of, how it got there. I need to do more investigation. So to be frustrated that maybe I'm not being taken seriously, it is difficult though, because there are conditions that are chronic conditions that do not get taken seriously by some doctors, even though they are totally well-researched, actual medical problems, well documented and documented for quite a long time. For some reason, there are some people that just think, oh, some patients are just complainers. So that's where it becomes a difficult thing, and that's why I'm sort of leaving the door open for perhaps there are very rare cases of what I might call later true Morgellons, where this is actually happening. It's a type of fiber, but it's not a hair, but it looks like a hair, and somehow the body's producing it. But that being said, the reason that we're talking about this is it came up in the last live stream, and I thought it was interesting enough because, yeah, we've heard a lot of very interesting conspiracies about COVID, but this one I thought was really interesting because I'm just very interested in Morgellons. If you guys watched it while, or were here with me, when we looked this up, I was just like, oh my gosh, Morgellons, wow. So I got really excited about it. I think it's a very interesting disorder, whatever it is. Whether it's purely psychological or something is actually growing under the skin, I still think whatever it is, it's very interesting. Okay. So how can we put these together? So let's go ahead and read some of the questions here. I'll get better when I can. Otherwise, I'll send you a VIP pass to the funeral. Oof. Oof. Don't want those memories. Let's see. I could use some of that on the center of my chin. No beard hair grows there. It's frustrating to style. You know, I'm going to recommend, what is it? Please don't judge. live streamers and stuff for forgetting words. I use this product literally every day. Oh my gosh. Cabral by Benefit. Okay. It's a really good thing for drawing on hairs. It's usually used for eyebrows, but I've used it for facial hair for costumes. So, very easy, lasts for a while. I do recommend it. All right. Could be worse. You could have, all I can grow is a Ron Jeremy stash. You guys are, see, I want to grow some cool facial hair. Let's see. People use minoxidil on their face to trigger vellus hairs to convert into terminal hairs. Okay, very cool. Looks like all of us are, apparently you guys are just wanting the extra hair. This is great. I'm glad you guys are able to get some information here. Jamaican black castor oil can trigger hair growth, and for some reason I've heard a lot of people had good results with inositol. It's a type of B vitamin. You should be able to get it pretty cheaply. However, you should buy the pill because for some people they use the powder to cut with illegal powdered white substances, and because of that they ended up increasing the price for that to I guess it's like, well, if people are going to pay for it anyway, might as well make more money off of it. I don't know. And inositol as a pill is quite cheap. But yeah, when I was working for a supplement company, I had a few people come in and they said it helped regrow their hairline. I have no idea if that's true, but it is cheap enough that if I end up having to deal with that, that's the first thing I'm going to buy. So I do like to recommend it. It's cheap enough, and other people had good results with it. So I didn't think there's any hair regrowth treatments that actually work. Yeah, I think it's one of those things where it depends on why your hair isn't growing back, what you're doing, how you're taking it. Is, you know, Jupiter in the house of Venus, or you know what I mean? It just seems like there's so many factors. But again, inositol is quite cheap, so I'm talking like a bottle of it for maybe $5 US, so it's quite affordable. Yeah. For male pattern baldness, yeah, again, these are people that were regrowing a hairline. There was a woman and a man, so their hairline had started receding. Which, are you talking? No, that's a receding your hairline, right? Male pattern baldness is in the back. Is that right? Anyway, hopefully that helps. Yeah, and then apparently the minoxidil. So cool. Hopefully this will get us growing hair-like substances that we do want. Okay, so for hair-like substances we do not want, this has been kind of interesting here. So a video watched more than 34,000 times in which a person rips apart the material from what is described as a COVID-19 test swab includes several false claims, such as that the material is, quote, alive, end quote, or made from, quote, Morgellons, end quote, a theoretical material associated with an unproven medical condition. So again, the Morgellons, this is that fibrous substance that you are pulling out. It looks like a thread. When I've seen Morgellons, it looks like a thread. But there are people that when they present these things to their doctor, it's kind of it can be a kind of a combination of different things, including one of the examples I gave was a piece of a walnut skin. So I've heard of that as well, where a person, it almost seems like there was just various things that got stuck to their skin that day. Maybe it was hot or whatever, and the person had assumed that all of them were coming out of the skin. And so they presented them to the doctor, and the doctor was like, well, this is this thing, and this is this other thing, and this is a kind of a rock. And even if we want to say that Morgellons is a totally verified and scientifically validated disorder, this doesn't meet the requirements of Morgellons. So, you know, some people claim to have Morgellons, but they actually do not. So, like, they don't meet the requirements for it, even as a self-diagnosed condition, if that makes sense. So the video here, okay, features a woman who says when she got COVID-19 tests from a friend, which she took apart with tweezers, which I thought interesting. So Of course, we can't disprove this right now, right? Maybe it's going to come out in the future, right? But that's pretty interesting at first. So that if a friend gives me a COVID-19 test, for me to like pull it apart as a person who doesn't have scientific equipment in my house, what am I going to hope to find? Right? I can't test this. This person isn't testing us. This person isn't taking apart the test to perform any kind of scientific tests on it, right? They're just pulling it apart. They're damaging something somebody could use to diagnose COVID, and they're wasting it, basically. So this kind of sets sort of the tone of what this person's mindset is, that perhaps this test is useless, that COVID isn't real, something like that. So for somebody to take a test, like I would never take, I don't know, an AIDS test and damage it. Somebody could have used that. Especially in this situation of a pandemic, that why would you damage this test? So that seems a bit kind of, let's try to put ourselves in that kind of mindset where I would take this, if maybe a friend gave it to me so I could try to swab myself and then, I don't know, see if I have COVID. Maybe my friend's concerned that I've been exposed to COVID. And so instead of actually doing the test, I'm like, rip it apart. What would I have to be thinking? What would my mindset be? That would be my initial reaction to receiving this test. So that's sort of a step 0, I guess, we have to think about. She shows the packaging of a swab and says, do you see what the COVID test says? Tip wrapped with traditional fiber. Well, this fiber that's on here is the same fiber that comes out of my body. These are nanoparticles. As this article goes on, because we did read this a little bit, a nanoparticle is really, really, really small. It's not something you could just like take a tweezer to and show to a camera that I could see with the naked eye. It's too small for that. So again, this is a person that they have Morgellons, whether that is a real or perceived condition, they believe they have it. So they have Morgellons. And when they see this thing now, this is providing some kind of verification for it. Why would I have Morgellons? What is the government doing something? Is it something in the water? And so there is an unfortunate overlap with people that have reported, like self-reported alien abductions, people that have reported being spied on. So people that perhaps have not been officially diagnosed with paranoid delusions, but perhaps should get that looked at. The problem is that once you suggest that to someone, of course, they take offense to it. And again, I don't want to offend anybody that might be feeling like maybe I have Morgellons. It's always good to find out exactly the cause. And if the cause happens to be totally a perspective issue, that's a good thing to know. It's good to know what's real and what isn't. Just having my chronic migraines, there's a lot of times when I perceive I am in a severe earthquake. It's very important for me to know, is there an actual earthquake or am I perceiving that? Because if there is an actual earthquake, especially while I'm at work, I have a list of procedures to follow. But for me to just follow those procedures without an actual earthquake, that would be a waste of everyone's time, right? So I always check with an outside source. Hey, is it just me? Or are we in the middle of an earthquake? No, I don't feel anything. Okay, it's just me. It's always good to have that outside check. So let's see what you guys are saying in the chat. Let's see. Scroll, scroll, scroll. I wear glasses, have done for 40 years when the frames hug my scalp above the ears. Hairs can grow out with an unusual texture. Freaked me out a little, but I had the confidence to ask. It's normal. Oh, that's interesting. There are a few pills. Speaking of glasses, I don't want to do that thing where I'm zoomed in myself again. There are a few pills that stop different types of male pattern baldness, different prescriptions for each pattern it seems, but it doesn't make it regrow. Okay. When do you think we'll get the squeeze bottle of stem cells? Right. Bloop. There we go. Let's see. So more information on minoxidil. Very cool. Let's see. Serves their own agenda. Just wondering, you don't have to answer if you don't want, but have you gotten vaccinated for COVID yet? I am not in the group currently to be vaccinated, but I do plan on getting vaccinated. So if that helps. Some of my students have been asking that because they're concerned. They said, well, I heard about this one boy that died. And I said, okay, that is interesting. But then we have to investigate further. What did the boy actually die from? Was it an allergic reaction to something in the vaccine that nobody notified them about, or maybe the kid just didn't know he had a severe allergic reaction to that substance, happened to get it, happened to die? Terrible, but not something that the rest of us can expect, right? Is it that the needle that was used happened to be contaminated with MRSA or something, and so this kid ended up getting MRSA in their bloodstream and it went septic and they died from that? Again, tragic, but not something that's caused by the vaccine, so the rest of us can't really expect that. So these are, some of the things that we have to ask. I mean, if there was a huge death rate or even a moderate death rate from the vaccine, this would have been reported a lot more. For those of you in the United States, you might have a hard time accepting that statement. The reason, and I think I've mentioned talking with my brother before, the United States tends to really, really, really sensationalize, politicize, polarize, oh my guys, news, whereas a lot of other countries do not. So something that is science information is science information. And that's how it's reported. As opposed to, and maybe there's fringe groups that might live here that might report it a certain way. I've seen some stuff about like the end times, microchips being injected under your skin, stuff that I heard back in my religious days, and they're still saying the same thing basically. But that's a fringe group, whereas in the United States that tends to get more traction. There's entire news sites or news apps, major news networks that really, really, really sensationalize even just basic science, which is really unfortunate. So that's why I'm saying maybe not for you guys, but at least for us, we would have definitely heard a lot more of, holy goodness, there seems to be like a 3% death rate from this vaccine, we're going to discontinue it. That would be something we would hear. So the fact that every student is talking about this one kid, but I don't really know, and that to me sounds like perhaps they heard it from a family member who heard it from a fringe news site, or they read it off the internet somewhere and haven't got a lot of substantiating information. So something like that for me is, again, that's interesting, but can't draw any conclusions from it. Let's see. To think that you could pull apart a vaccine and see what was happening inside as an indication of the person's ignorance to how vaccines actually work. So real quick, it's not the vaccine, it is the test. But yes, same concept, I think. 11 days into stage 1 Moderna. Okay. It's not in the vaccine, it's a test. Okay, great. Doesn't nanoparticle mean billionth of something, inch, centimeter? It says here 100 nanometers. So it has to be less than 100 nanometers. I think a microparticle would be more accurate. It could be. I would just say an itty bitty, Let's see. While you were a combat engineer, if one good stat specialist could create a satchel charge with a poly RE factor and get it deep enough in the ground with the fault line and cause one of these earthquakes you describe. I don't know. No, the earthquakes I'm talking about are not real. That's what I'm saying. The earthquakes I'm talking about are not real. These are perception of shaking caused by my neurological issue. That's all. So these are not like actual earthquakes. Let's see. Thank you for clarifying the vaccine. Yeah, no problem. Canadian journalism is getting more like American journalism, sadly. That is too bad. I do recommend checking out other news sites that might help. But again, other news sites, of course, will focus on news in their own country as well. So you get to know what's going on around the world. But at least with stuff that everyone's trying to deal with, such as a vaccine for the pandemic, then at least you can hear about it from their perspective. George Bernard Shaw, if you can't do teachers, wait, what? People who won't learn, they don't know, they're lying to us. I feel like I read that all too jumbled. But yeah, I don't like that if you can't do teach. I think that's for people that, oh, well, I can't really get a job in my field. At least I can get a job teaching a related field. But I think we all know the difference between a person who stands in front of the room and talks and a teacher. So, yeah, I guess George Bernard Shaw was talking about the first group. Yeah. With black milliparticle, Hiram, I appreciate the fact that you understand that I haven't had lunch yet, but I cannot eat word salad. Okay. They have temporarily discontinued the AstraZeneca here in Norway due to multiple deaths. That's good to know. That's good to know. And again, what's the cause? Is the cause the vaccine itself? Is the cause the weight? Like, is there a contamination in the vaccine? For example, if a lot of people were dying in the US and possibly the UK, I don't know if Norway has the same issue, but there's like a higher level of peanut allergies. It's very interesting why this happens, but because people are scared that their kids are going to be allergic to peanuts, they don't feed their children peanuts, and not feeding your child peanuts and exposing them to peanuts is actually what makes an allergy worse. So about 80% of peanut allergies could be taken care of if a child had been exposed to peanuts earlier. So they're starting to do exposure therapy for nut allergies and some wheat allergies, and it's very, very interesting how that works. But yeah, so if it was something like AstraZeneca vaccine deaths and it was in the US, I would wonder if there was some kind of peanut related thing that happened to get exposed, and maybe it wasn't, like maybe peanut oil, which it's not, but let's just pretend peanut oil was somehow an emulsifier, I don't know, that they had to use for that. But because it's so uncommon, nobody mentioned it on like the warning label, and a bunch of people got it and died from it. I could see that happening. So I would just wonder why. I'm allergic to all nuts. That sucks. I developed an allergy to pumpkin and pumpkin seeds, and that's it. I have to go to the hospital. My throat closes up. It's very, very strange. Let's see. Just one second. Almonds, cashews, peanut butter, you name it. What about seeds? Are you allergic to seeds? Because that one I think is always interesting. Let's see. Scroll back up. Might like a YouTube channel called, what's that channel about, Hiram? Let's see. If you have the same earthquake issue, do you get fasciculations? I think is how to pronounce that, but basically muscle twitches. I get muscle twitches anyway. When I was having my super migraine from heck, right? I was like having a lot of twitching like this. That was happening. My head was jerking a lot. With the earthquake issue, no. I would say it's more when I move my eyes, including moving my head, it feels like somebody's whacking the back of my head really hard. So imagine that every time you moved, you get a quick thump really hard in the back of your head. So that pain, but also that jostling, that's what happens. So whenever I'm moving my eyes when this happens, it's very painful, but also very disorienting. I really don't care for it. But it's interesting because what, the ocular lobe or occipital lobe is in the back. Boom. Okay, maybe that's what's going on. So exciting. Okay. Again, most of my news from podcasts, that's pretty cool, but again, we do want to be careful, right? I encourage you to listen to, I've got Fox News as an app. I do. I encourage people to look up what the other side is saying about stuff. Okay. So it doesn't mean you believe it. It's just, what are people saying? Is this something that I would find convincing? People who say people who can't teach need to learn a thing or two about the importance of education and educators. I think it's for people that had bad teachers. So maybe their sample size validates the statement, maybe. The panic that's been attached to the vaccines is way out of control, to the extent that in the Western world, it's hard to have a mature conversation about the subject. Yes. And that's one of the reasons that this is really helpful compared to a voice chat. We were talking about voice chats in the past one. Let's see. For one thing, any given corona, MERS, spike ball protein is also on the micro level, not nano level. Not sure how that is related here. Also importantly, wacky conspiracies about chips in humans are impossible because they could never create enough current. Okay. And also, Chris usually points out what would power it. Yeah, and that's a tech person thing, not a me person thing. So that's always interesting. The deaths were due to an extremely rare combination of thrombocytopenia and thrombosis. Okay, very interesting. I almost died from eating an egg roll with peanut oil. LOL. I don't think that's an LOL. I knew someone that died from peanut oil. Yeah. So, it's almost like just make the food at home, right? It's so scary. Hopefully you always have that EpiPen with you. Let's see. Occipital lobe. No, I don't know that reference, Hiram. I think the fear of the COVID shot is more of a fear of the unknown. I agree, will vilify, but at the same time, I feel like a lot of this is known. So in one of the forums, like the groups that I'm in, like on Discord, we had this discussion, if the COVID vaccine comes out, would you get it? No, because why is it pushed out so fast? And that's a great question, but it's not a great reason. Does that make sense? So it's a great start. Why is this being pushed out so quickly? And so if you understand the process for it, not only the process to make a vaccine, but also this idea that these are small groups that are working on making a vaccine. So it's one group trying one thing, that didn't work, try again. Oh, that didn't work, try. Oh, we get to stage 2 of testing, that didn't work, try again, whatever. Okay, that's going to take a while. But if we take all of those tests and spread them out for hundreds, thousands of different groups around the world trying all at once to make the vaccine, suddenly we're not having one group go through 800 tests, we're having 1,000 groups go through 1,000 tests. And so now we're able to do it much more quickly, simply because there's more people working on it. It's not that we're cutting corners, it's not that we're cheating or that, vaccines are actually really easy to make and we've been lying to make money or something in the past. It's a good question. How come this is coming out more quickly than other vaccines in the past? And there are answers for that. So I think that's the problem, is that a lot of people kind of stop at the question, and the question is where you should start and then find the answers. If you can't find the answers, it remains a question, not a reason, not evidence. And I think that's where some of the problems come in. I think part of it is that when we love having the freedom to express ourselves, which is super great, one of the issues is that we feel like my opinion as an uneducated individual is the same as the opinion of somebody who's dedicated their career to working on this. We both have the same freedom, but our statements are not equal. And I think part of it has been issues like on the news when they bring on an expert and then a person who disagrees with it, maybe a spokesperson for a Facebook group. The expert and the spokesperson for the Facebook group, they are not on the same footing. But now it's presented to the people watching it, it's presented to the viewers as if they're on the same footing. And so we think, gosh, who could I believe? This person says two things, but then this other person also says two things. But they're two different things. Gosh, they've got two reasons and they've got two reasons. How do I decide? I guess it's up to me to go with what lines up with my pre-existing values. But really that's not the case. You have one expert who's telling you facts and evidence and one person who is not. So when you present it that way, of course you want to believe the one that has the evidence because they're presenting the evidence, and not believe the person who has no evidence. So these are some of the problems that we have to get through in order to get education out there, I think. Let's see. I trust YouTube news accounts more than any normal news channels nowadays. More real people involved. I think so. There's even some of those comedy news channels I think are pretty interesting because they're almost like looking for stuff to make a joke, like to make fun of people for being so ridiculous, and so they end up finding like all this stuff to just expose like how ridiculous stuff is for entertainment, but it's also like factually accurate, which is it's very strange. Let's see, my uncle was making a Tuskegee experiment argument about it, but I couldn't find the end goal, so I stopped listening. I'm not 1,000% sure about the Tuskegee experiment. You might have to refresh me on that one. CNN and Fox News are both laughable. Yeah, but we gotta love Anderson Cooper's rocking that white hair. Maybe I'm just thinking about what made me nervous when I was getting it. Sure. And I think it's normal to be nervous because we are exposed to all of this stuff. You know, there's people that, for example, they're atheists, but they still have that nagging, what if hell is real kind of feeling, even though they know better. So it is a really interesting thing about us, just because I forget exactly what the term is, but the more that we're exposed to the same statement, the more we start to believe it's true, even if it's not true, even if we've never been presented any evidence to support the statement. Just hearing the statement over and over makes us feel like there must be some truth to it. Otherwise, why would so many people be saying it? Let's see. All right. The main problem with network news is incentives. I agree. Advertisement, profit-driven, I agree. It's no longer about the truth. That's not to say they're all bad, but they're more susceptible to bias. So when I was in the Marines, I worked for intelligence, not like anything super cool, but still stuff that I can't tell you guys, okay? We would get this information like every day. We would just get this information. It's sort of like a police blotter. So it's just like, oh, here's this, you know, arrests that were made, like updates, like law enforcement updates from the previous day, except it's international intelligence. So we would get something like that. And we got this information, which I can mention the nation, and I'm not going to go into specifics, but I can mention the nation because it was put into national news. It was about North Korea. And this was right after, we had gone into Iraq, we were in Afghanistan, and, you know, I disagree with the reasons that we went to Iraq, but I feel like it was our responsibility to fix what we blew up, you know? So, it's a very, I'll just skip it. So anyway, some people were worried about North Korea. There was this talk of nuclear weapons. And we got this information about North Korea. It was 2 sentences. One was a statement of what was going on, and the other one was a statement of, we're currently not worried about them. Cool. and the rest of it about other nations. Great. A few weeks later, I heard about it on the news. I think I was at, I don't know, a bar or like a restaurant, and they just had the TV on, and a lot of people were like freaking out because they said North Korea might have nukes. And I just remember I was eating with someone or having a drink with someone, and I looked at the TV and I was like, they were like, oh, holy bleep, oh my gosh, what could be going on? And I said, don't worry about it. And they said, what do you mean? I said, I can't, just don't worry about it. And over the next several weeks, they turned it into this fear fest. Now, they knew the end result, because we had the end result, which was we're not worried about it. It's nothing to worry about at all. And basically what the news had concluded with that yes, uranium and plutonium were obtained, but there wasn't any demonstrable like devastation. It was just like enough of each to maybe set off a test weapon. That was it. And they knew that. But they turned it into this thing for weeks. I mean, I was trying to explain on forums and stuff. Like, I was having my, like, forums that I frequented. I wasn't, like, looking for them to have an argument. People would make these threads about, oh my gosh, North Korea, how come the military's not deployed, blah, blah, blah. And they knew I was in the military, so they might tag me or something. And I was like, listen, I can't explain it, but don't worry about it. I had some family members tell me I was brainwashed by the military to just do what Uncle Sam says and all this other stuff, right? And it was just, no, and I was so mad at the news because I understood why nobody wanted to listen to me, because I wasn't providing evidence, because I couldn't provide evidence, and I understood that. But I was really mad that the news was whipping people into a frenzy. And at the end of it, you know, people were able to see what I said, we're not worrying about it. And that was why. And I was just so mad. I thought, why did they do that to people? Why would they cause such a huge stir for weeks? And it was after that when I thought, I cannot trust major news. I want to watch it to start, to get an idea of what I can research. So I'm still interested in the news in that sense, but not to just receive my information. I was so upset. Oh, I was so upset about that. Let's see what you guys had to say. Let's see. The implanted Bill Gates chips are presumably activated by Jewish space lasers. I thought that was the wildfires. No amount of people working on vaccines will make up for the lacking data on long-term effects of vaccines. That's true. It's not that I'm anti-vax, but I'm skeptical about something with no long-term side effect data on. Ugh, this 200 character limit is awful. I agree. It is awful. I wish I could change it. Yes, we don't know the long-term effects of the vaccines. I think the idea is that we understand how vaccines basically work. We have all of this other information to go on. There's no reason for us to assume this will react very differently from before. It could, but there's no reason for us to assume that. And I think that's why they're trying to roll it out a bit quickly. To be exact, he led with, remember that time the US government tried to see what would happen if sickle cell went untreated indefinitely under the false pretense of medical research. Oh, that's interesting. Fun fact though, if you have sickle cell, you can't get malaria. So it seems to be an evolutionary benefit if you live in an area with malaria. You were in the Marines, that's hardcore. Yeah. What's my Instagram handle? It should be at Ms. Lemon 42, but it's much better to just join us on the Discord, which I never have handy. Invite, don't let it delete. I wish I could just set it up where like the default is don't delete, because it's like expire after 7 days. I don't want that. Who wants that? Who wants that? Let's see. Hiram, again, not sure what we're going on about here. Check out the British series, Yes Minister, helps you see the politics the way you learn to see through the news. It's amazing. That's so sad. And in this time, there's an increased level of Russophobia and xenophobia. being projected by the US, and this is clouded vax discussions as these two countries are providing vaxes. Yes, that's a great point. So, Shugul, that was one of the issues with a student that had mentioned that to me about, oh, this kid died. And I said, well, what did he die from? Well, the vaccine came from Russia. And I said, so what? Well, it's Russia. Yeah, they started the space program. I mean, they were tip top, like science and stuff, man. Like, what do you mean Russia? You know? So again, you don't make fun of them, but you have them explain what they're thinking. And that's kind of where they stop, right? It's because that's what they've been exposed to. Well, how come we shouldn't believe it? Well, because it came from China. Okay, so why shouldn't we believe it? Well, because we know that XYZ, okay, maybe that's a true thing, and that's something to think about. Or, well, you know how China is. Not really an answer. So we have to be careful with that. If 42 is the answer, what is the question? That's why it's Ms. Lemon 42. Because we answer all kinds of questions here. If the mRNA vax makes us mutants, I want Gambit's superpower. Let me tell you, Sovereign Soul, I am so mad with my superpower because I am reverse storm. Storm affects the weather affects me. Terrible. What kind of useless power is this? Like, oh, all the X-Men, hey, let's all go on a picnic. Oh my gosh, reverse storm, what's wrong? Oh, I think it's gonna rain later. Like, wow, we don't have to go on that picnic, guys. Reverse storm goddess, picnic inside the house. And then like me, like shaking on the ground in pain. Terrible, useless power. Useless. Can't remember the source, but I think the vaccine technology that's been around for at least a few years. The mRNA stuff, yes, but as far as I know, they haven't made any human vaccines for it. That was again, it's like, well, I guess now's the time, sort of thing. Man, I'm glad to come here and have a measured discussion. Yeah, and that's what I want you guys to be able to have here. To be fair, I used the risk versus reward, and the reward outnumbered the risk. I agree. The people that are scared of the, well, 1 in a million vaccines on average provide an adverse side effect. That's true, but your odds of getting into a car accident are much higher. And yet people just jump in their car because, oh, I forgot to grab this thing and I don't want to wait until the next time I need groceries. So I'll just drive back, increasing my risk of getting into a car accident. Now watch the filament videos. Yes. Okay. Let's see. Rain, lightning, no. Okay, it's in pain. Pain, lightning. So let's see the video. I don't know what this video is. It's on the Facebook. Oh, it's false information. Okay, well, I have another video here, so we'll see if this is it. This might be the one that you're talking about. Now, I turned off the sound, so it might be a different video, but the sound is not what we really care about. It's like music, which is very thumpy. So they're basically talking about these things react to heat, and then when you get them wet, they get rigid. Now, I don't want to say anything. I just want you guys to watch it and tell me what your initial reactions are. Feel free to take notes. Oh, that was it. How is that? No, that's not it. That can't be it. How is that it? There we go. I think it's been wet and it kind of curled up. Okay, so that is the end. Thoughts. Initial thoughts. Hello, Demon Sorrows. Don't worry, we are still waiting. Haven't gotten any text responses, but that's fine. Take your time. Oh, Mark of the Beast 666. Reptoid mind control nanites. Thank you, Signostic that. Let's see. China, run by one de facto leader from wife, treats the Uyghur, Hong Kong, Mongolian peoples of Hongli. Also China, 500 million vegetarian Buddhists. Okay. My thoughts, what if it curls up? Is the curling supposed to mean or indicate something? It's devoid of such context. So the curling up is when it gets wet. Why are the black bits there in the first place? Is it innocent or not? Right. Is it normal? Right? Is this a normal thing that we can expect? Is it some sort of carbon fiber? Sorry, this is just not hanging out, feeling good. Not even sure if it curled up. For all I know, it was moved by tiny currents in the water. Okay. Did it come into the chat with people doing whippets or what? No, we're talking about Morgellons and a claim about COVID tests. So having fun with that. So some things that I was thinking were, what would be the point, right? The thing that I thought initially when I saw that stretching, obvious CGI. That's how I just felt right away. It seemed very CGI. But if it is some kind of really hot thing, it's much hotter than body heat. What would be the purpose of something that is attracted to fire, for example, that would destroy the item? And then if it gets wet, it freezes. So this idea is that I guess it's heat seeking, so it's supposed to burrow into the body. But if it gets totally shunted or just like stunned by liquid, what? That's liquid, you know. It's like the M. Night Shyamalan signs aliens that they come to this planet and then, oh, they can be stopped by water. Then why would they come to the planet of water? You know what I mean? So if this thing is damaged or reacts or shuts off when it gets wet, it would just get stuck in my nose. And as soon as I blow my nose for whatever reason, probably after I'm done taking this COVID test, I would imagine I would want to blow my nose because of just that weird tickling sensation, and all of the filaments would come out. So that doesn't really make sense. Like, even if we grant that the video is totally accurate, what purpose would it serve to put some type of small machine that can't handle being wet into a wet body? So that is what I thought. Is it some sort of carbon fiber? It could be, right? It could be. Let's see. No, it moved to the left, so we're seeing it end on. Okay. Legit or not legit claims. We're not sure. So we're looking at it and we're just kind of analyzing it. Yeah. It looks like the end of a cotton swab. They're claiming a microscope, but it seems completely unsubstantiated. It is the end of the cotton swab for the test, the COVID test. But again, if you look at like a cotton swab or just a cotton shirt, I mean, there's black bits on it anyway, you know? I'm not sure what jelly side up is. I'm going to go take a closer look and come back. So yeah, I looked up COVID Morgellons. Is that what I looked up? I think it was just Morgellons. Hashtag Morgellons on Instagram. So it's just one of the videos that pops up. What's to say it's wetness that makes it rigid? Maybe it's the cool temperature of the water. It could be, right? It could be. It could be a nose hair responding to static. Yeah, it could be static. I also thought, what if it's one of those little, you know, the metallic, not metallic, magnetic putty. You know, it could be something like that. You know, it is interesting. So there was another video I did not see. All right, let's see if there's a voice here. Let's see. All right, what are we looking at? No, I don't. I can't hear anything. This reminds me a lot of those videos where they said that there was like worms or something coming out of the pork, and they were faked. So I guess it's just, yeah. Let's see what people have said. Had anyone ID'd those things? The medical mafia has been denying the existence of Morgellons for at least 15 years. The chemtrail project was not effective enough for distribution, but plenty of people got it. Now with mask mandates, unenforceable, you stupid sheeple, they found a more efficient mode of infection. So to this person, again, I would ask, to what end, right? To what end are we doing this? Especially for chemtrails, this idea that we're dispersing stuff in the atmosphere. Now, this one is interesting because this person is blaming Morgellons, or blaming the chemtrails for Morgellons, which would mean they believe that these tiny filaments or filamentous infections, that's like a parasite almost, that's reproducing and producing these filaments out of the skin, that they had contracted this from chemtrails. But the problem would be, of course, dispersion, right? Or diffusion, sorry. When we release this stuff into the air, it's released into the air and it diffuses very quickly, right? So this idea to, if I were to want to target a population for some type of attack, for example, right? I would not do it with chemtrails because this would blow everywhere. You know what I mean? And again, to what end? The people that are living with Morgellons, again, whether Morgellons is real or just perceived, the people that are living with this, what about their life has been so altered? To whose benefit, right? Even if this person is feeling frustrated and pained and, you know, personally harmed by something, who benefited from that? Like, if I was a CEO of some major medical company, Morgellons is not a recognized medical disorder that requires medical treatment. So if I was a CEO of a major medical company, I would make sure that Morgellons went into what the ICD-10, the International, I don't know, condition, I forget what it's that stands for, but it's basically this standard diagnostic criteria, International Criteria of Diagnostics, I don't know, IDC, is it IDC-10, is that why? So it's a diagnostic manual, that's the 10th version, and it's been updated to look at diagnostic criteria for medical care or medical disorders. So if I was this, you know, big pharma or medical mafia CEO, then I would ensure that Morgellons made it into the most updated sources, so that way it can be classified as a disorder and I can start selling my treatment for it. And then that way I could make money. Now, that would make sense to me. I mean, it wouldn't be verified as true, but that would at least make some sense to me. But for me as a CEO to spend so much money to release a question mark, we don't know what it is, into the atmosphere in the hopes that it trickles down onto some people and makes them really annoyed with having to pull fibers out of their skin, what did I do that for? Right? And those are the things that we have to ask. To whose benefit is that? So what could this be? Quite frankly, the person could be blowing, or there could be a fan or a heater or some other air circulator on this. And this could be something like a cat hair or something being moved around. That's assuming it's real and not faked, right? It could be faked. We've seen people fake stuff before. Under this idea too that it's okay to fake evidence because I believe the thing is real. We also, I forget the term for it for Jehovah's Witnesses, but they believe it's okay to lie as long as it furthers their religious beliefs, so, or their religious goals. But again, what would be the reason here? Zombie apocalypse is looking like a sure thing, and so that's another thing. If we want to make people into these like mind-controlled zombies with these filaments, the people with Morgellons are very outspoken. They're not mind-controlled zombies. They're people that are fighting back against what they perceive as this great attack on the people from the medical mafia, big pharma, however you want to characterize it. So they're releasing something into the air, spending a lot of money to inaccurately hope that it gets into the people that they want it to get into, and it's making them not want to deal with big pharma. Somehow that makes big pharma money. This doesn't flow. It doesn't make a lot of sense. So we're gonna go ahead and just move away from that moving image, making me a bit dizzy. And what do we got here? What's the connection, supposed connection between it curling and being something bad? How is curling bad or indicative of something bad? I'm missing something here. Right, so am I. Unfortunately, that wasn't really added. If you guys, I mean, I guess we can ask, can't we? Let's see. So I'll go ahead and sign into there, and we can just ask them, and then hopefully we can get that information. More gallons. Cool. Maybe with the right spelling. Cool. Top recent. I'm still up there. That's great. Okay. Let's see if anybody has said anything. No? Okay, so let's go ahead and just write what you said. What's the connection or what's the meaning / intention, intended, intended, I'm not sure, purpose / results of the, how would we describe this, the curling seizing when exposed to liquid. I'm gonna say, what do you think? Because I feel like that's less confrontational. What do you think is the meaning or intended purpose / result of the curling / seizing when exposed to liquid? Great. Ferromagnetic, yeah, that's what I'm talking about, that putty. Let's see, jelly side up was supposed to be a sign that the devil was at work. Oh gosh, that's right. Oh my gosh, I can't really, you just like memory unlocked. Ugh. When they poured the Coke over the meat, right, that was the thing I was talking about. To what end? Cull the world population so there were fewer that are easily controlled, but the people that are getting Morgellons are not dying, right? So if that is the answer, I know that you're not saying that is, but if that is the answer, then why? Considering the garbage that people eat, they could wipe out far more people with a burger. Right. I mean, our current lack of exercise and unhealthy diet, that's a great way to kill the population, and we're doing it ourselves. You know? It looks like a bloody hair blown by a fan. It could be, right? It could be. I found a clip from that video that I could see better. It's totally just a nose hair on the end of a cotton swab. Perhaps that's what it was. They took it out. and like after they had done the test or something. I think the JW calls it theological warfare. Yeah, that might be it. First step in a cult or conspiracy group, claim everyone else is lying. That's true. Let's see. How do you know it's a nose hair? I don't think that the analyzed atheist knows that it's a nose hair. I think that they're saying it's that's what that would be their first inclination. Acceptable truth also pops in my mind, but I think that's Scientology. Okay. So let's go ahead and need to bring back the amazing Randy. I know. Can you resurrect him? That's a resurrection I would like to see. So unfortunately, we can't watch the video, but thankfully, this site had at least mentioned what she was saying. So that's good. They quoted her. She also says that compared to a normal cotton Q-tip, which is white, the material in the swab is the COVID test has a silvery sheen. While regular Q-tips are said to be made from 100% pure cotton, the CDC advises that only synthetic fiber swabs be used to collect the samples. The test swab seen in the video in the classic swab, dry swab, which are available tips made from polyester or viscose, a type of rayon. Both materials have a sheen. So what they're saying is the woman who had made the video said, hey, you know, cotton Q-tips are white, but this is kind of shiny or silvery. And so the fact checker here is saying, yep, they are silvery. It's not a normal cotton Q-tip because it's not a normal cotton Q-tip. So that's what they're saying. Later in the video, the woman says, quote, these are the same particles that come out of my body. They are nanoparticles. These particles are alive and they move, end quote. So again, this is a person with Morgellons, okay? And I feel this is one of the reasons I feel like it's very, very important, especially for those of us that have medical conditions that maybe people don't understand or have mental issues that maybe people don't understand. It's really important for us to use accurate language. We can't just use terms that sound scientific, like a nanoparticle, for example. So I feel like in order to get the most accurate information out there, so that people understand and maybe can sympathize with someone who has Morgellons like this person, it really, really behooves her to understand the terms that she's using. So for example, if, you know, I'm at risk, an increased risk for cancer because of what I was exposed to in the military, but I can't say something like, oh, I have to be careful of toxins. That's not something that's going to help me explain my situation. Where if I talk about my chronic migraines, some people don't understand how bad migraines are and how much of your body they really, really affect. And they don't understand that they're a neurological disorder. They don't. So if I were to say something like the vibrations from the clouds are affecting my migraines, that's not going to help them understand it any better. And they might further, or that might further their belief that migraines are not real or whatever. So if I'm able to explain it as, well, you know, like other chronic conditions and rheumatoid conditions that are also chronic, there's, for some reason, there's a connection between the increase in air pressure or decrease in air pressure and the person's perception of pain, which is that like old man's weather predicting syndrome, I call it, where Grandpa knows that the rain's coming because his knee hurts, and it only hurts with that. And so they don't really understand the connection, but they do understand there is a connection. So those are some of the things to think about. Always do yourself the best that you can. Let's see. My nose hairs look nothing like that. Mine are straight and taper off quickly. Some people have curly ones, yeah. What's bad about the curling hairs? Hands up those who don't use straighteners. Yeah, my big floofy hair right now. So I understand anti-vaxxers, but I look at vaccination as a patriotic duty. I don't know if I would use the word necessarily patriotic, but I would definitely say social duty. And if you don't want to be part of society, that's your choice. Don't live in society. You know what I mean? If you want to drive around drunk, go do that in the forest somewhere. I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Let's see. Have you also noticed how a hair reacts to heat? It can. The word is taqiyya. Yes, that's for the Muslims. Yes, I have heard of taqiyya. Means to conceal and protect. Blind with science method. Blind to the scientific method. Taqiyya is used in a life and death situation. Yes, usually it's what? If they're killing people that are Muslim, then you could pretend to not be Muslim so that way you can save yourself. Maybe movement is caused by quantum superposition of the ground being. So Deepak Chopra suddenly made sense to me. This dude is way into LSD. When you find that out, suddenly everything makes sense. I don't appreciate the fact that he's trying to abuse his medical credentials to get people to listen to him as if he's saying something that is scientifically validated in a scientific field that's totally not his own. I don't agree with that. But once you realize he's talking about his perception while on LSD, suddenly everything he says makes sense. Suddenly. Basically, it's okay to lie if it saves face. Gotcha. A week after it was 0 degrees, the warm hit 85. My knees killed me. Oh, I believe it. A lot of B5 fans here tonight. I don't know. B5. I'm sorry. Deepak Chopra, in terms of health wellness, is an obvious fraud. I would agree. And again, I just wish he would just be honest about that. Have I ever done any psychedelics? No, I have not. I think they're interesting, and I'm really interested in them because of, like, fungus. I think that's cool. I'm very interested in the stoned ape hypothesis. That's very interesting to me. But no, I've never done them. Let's see. Later in the video, the woman claims, quote, "They're putting nanoparticles right into your head. I know this for a fact because this material, these fibers, these silver fibers right here, they come out of my body. They're called Morgellons." So this is odd because I thought we were talking about the black ones, not the silver ones. And again, for what purpose, right? Why are they putting them into the body? Why? Somebody's got to spend the money. For what? Morgellons disease is an unproven skin condition in which sufferers report that the fibers are being released from sores on their body. Some doctors have described the disease as a delusion. While some research has suggested the patients might be suffering from actual infections, the assertions that the fibers removed from sufferers of Morgellons disease are alive nanoparticles, which I believe should also be in quotes, or that they are the same material seen in the swab, are unfounded. Yes, I would agree. The verdict is that this is false. The presence of nanoparticles cannot be directly assessed by the naked eye. The material used in swabs to test for COVID is a synthetic material rather than cotton and is not alive. Morgellons disease is an unproven condition, and any properties of fibers caused by the disease are theoretical. Cool. Thanks. But what else do we have? I just came across several videos which show that that there are some kind of black filaments visible under a microscope that seem to move when getting warm. This one is in German, but you can see it pretty clearly. Let's check it out.
So, hallo.
Hallo.
Es ging ja neulich ein Video rum, wo jemand mit einem Mikroskop mal so ein Teststäbchen genauer betrachtet hat und da so komische Sachen festgestellt hat, so kleine schwarze Fäden. So.
If anybody else speaks German, he's speaking way too quickly for me. I feel stupid. Anyway.
Ich habe mir jetzt mal gedacht, ich besorge mir auch mal so einen Test hier, ne? Weil der hat ja den Test gehabt. Und habe mir mal so ein kleines Mikroskop gekauft hier, wo ich ein bisschen was vergrößern kann. Man sieht das hinten im Hintergrund so ein bisschen da. Es sind nur tausendfache Vergrößerung, glaube ich. 0 bis tausendfach, ja. Mal gucken, ob das reicht. Ich weiß es nicht. Wir werden sehen.
Okay, so he bought this. I think it's a thousand. The amplifies 1,000 times, or it zooms in 1,000 times. He just bought this microscope. We're gonna check it out. Cool, cool. Okay, wow, we're just really getting into it. Nice, I like the stamp. That's fun. Cool, great. I mean, we don't. I mean, I'm glad that it is as long as it is, but what do we got?
Noch zu sehr, aber es ist nichts Großartiges zu sehen. Bis jetzt. Da. Da sind sie.
It says there it is.
Seht ihr das?
Do you see it?
Da, das.
I don't know what that was.
Das macht mich jetzt gerade sprachlos. Da. Warte mal. Ich versuche das mal ein bisschen genauer einzufangen. Dann. Da. Seht ihr dieses Riesenteil hier?
Okay.
Ich habe das ja für einen Witz gehalten, aber ich bin sprachlos. Okay. Wir machen das mal auf, das Dings hier, das Päckchen. Und dann gucken wir uns das nochmal an. Weil jetzt bin ich ja wirklich.
Okay, so I think he said that we're gonna check it out. We're gonna do a little work and check it out further. Okay.
Dreh mal mein Mikroskop hier so ein bisschen hin. Halt das jetzt hier ran. Und versuch das mal scharf zu stellen. Da ist er. So, sieht man den Bürstenkopf? Ja, ne? So, jetzt zieht es mal langsam hier lang. Andersrum? Nee, falsche Richtung. Bisschen schärfer stellen. Nicht so einfach. Weiter, weiter, weiter. Da.
There it is.
Da
Okay.
ist einer. Guck dich das an. Genau an der Spitze vorne. Ich drehe den mal ein bisschen. Warte. Nee, hier ist keiner.
Well, it's not there. Okay. Looking at it again.
Seht ihr?
Do you see it?
Da ist er.
There it is. So again, to what end, right? What is it? What is it even? For there to be one differently colored item in a bunch of a single colored item, that to me that is not, that again is okay. What's it doing there? You know, it's like when people don't realize that there's an acceptable amount of like mouse feces that can end up in your ketchup. Like they don't, you know, maybe there's just this acceptable number of other hairs or other fibers that are there, you know. Thank you, I'm speechless. Okay. Let's see what we're talking about here. Joe Rogan has entered the chat. Thank you. I don't think psychedelics would be good for Lee based on the unknown factors it could pose to her. If you're past 30 and haven't had any psychotic breaks, safe from triggering any latent schizophrenia. That's true. My big issue is that there's already a lot that I don't like the feeling of not being able to trust what I see and feel. That's something that I'm having just as a side effect of my medical condition. Like I said, the earthquakes thing, or just parts of my vision blacking out. Just not a thing that I want to seek out. And so I know that that's not all that hallucinogenics provide. I know a lot of people seem to get a very therapeutic benefit from it, which is awesome, you know, cool. But in my case, I feel like it would just be really uncomfortable. And I can't imagine, as uncomfortable I am in my everyday life, I cannot imagine seeking that out. You guys may have heard that I'm getting more and more quiet. It's because as I'm talking, my head is really hurting. So I just can't imagine seeking that out for myself. Yeah. Wounded Monk, welcome. How you doing? Good times? Saw an article saying Germany has a lot of QAnon supporters, so this doesn't surprise me. Okay. I only speak English and Hut. Boshoda. I don't know. I was going to say a bunch of like blah, 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 solo, That's all I got. And I can make a Wookiee noise. That's not, you're welcome. You're welcome. I saw an episode of Dr. Pimple Popper where a lady came in with all these sores all over her body, but the doc said it was psychosomatic and they were created by a condition by picking at the skin and infecting it. It could be the same thing for Morgellons. That's one thing that we were kind of talking about in the previous live stream. And I was saying it in conjunction with perhaps previous methamphetamine use, but it is another condition where people do pick at their skin. They have a feeling that there's something under their skin. So they start picking at it, or they'll pick out hairs. So these are conditions that we are aware of. And so if you have, it's also, fun fact, I guess, picking at a self-inflicted injury is also one of the, that's the culprits for stigmata. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. Stigmata. I am having a hard time kind of holding it together. I do feel like suddenly, my body is slowly floating apart. So I do, again, see, this is why I don't need to do LSD or anything. So I'm getting like waves of heat and just kind of feeling like my brain is, like my head is like, just like diffusing into the room. Again, these are just migraines. It's, these are not a good time. So if I'm pausing, that's the reason. I do want to finish this though. I think it's interesting enough to finish, because otherwise I'm just going to be feeling funky and lying down. At least it doesn't hurt too bad. I had better control of the microscope back in in high school, hold it still. That could be, yeah. It's a big risk. I really messed up my head on shrooms. Okay. They have a light pointed at it. Heat, yeah, that could be definitely affected. And also, just moving this stuff. Did the filament show when it was sealed? It did. But again, so what? Right? So what? I mean, when you get a new pair of white socks, there's always black stuff on them. Let's see. This looks like my nose, okay. Then add in that hot, cold water absorbs differently. Hair absorbs and tenses up. Let's see. Yes, I agree. This is just within tolerance of quality control. Thank you. I think that's a great way to phrase it. Yes, that's what I'm thinking. Time to take a break for lunch. Yeah, perhaps. But I don't want to take a break here because I think I want to finish this so we can finish it. Schrödinger's virus. I had Schrödinger's virus. I did. Yusuf, did we talk about it? And even if it did, how would you verify it as just a manufacturing error or something within tolerances for recycled fibers? So Wounded Monk, it's not that they're talking about it as a manufacturing error. They're talking about it as a specifically implanted, deliberate infection of the human population by living filaments. That's what they're talking about. That COVID is being used as an excuse to inject or infect people with living filaments. And again, to what end? Why? I mean, even if we granted that this is happening, if we granted it, why? For what? And people will say, actually, we mentioned all the reasoning here, mind control and to cull the population. But the people that report having Morgellons are outspoken, so it's not mind control, and haven't just died off, so it isn't something like that. Now, it does remind me to check on the thing that we posted. No response at all. So no like or reply to what we posted. Bye, RD. Let's see. As far as I know, Signostic, it doesn't help with migraines, but I have heard of it with cluster headaches, but only a portion of it, so not even the part that makes you quote unquote trip out. Yeah. We can't let you start feeling bad on us too. I've been sick enough for the both of us. You have. I'm very like for the both of us. That's how I feel, like just that's how I feel. It's so stupid because there's no reason for it, you know, other than the stupid migraine. You know what? I bet. Let me check the air pressure. That's what I'm thinking is okay. What do we got? Low pressure. That's it. And it's dust outside, but I don't know if that's the fact. That can do the migraine thing, but not the... But that is a part of the migraines. So, let's see. That's why I don't like white socks. You got to keep them clean, but they have a mind of their own. They're attracted to dirt. Exactly. Let's see. Oh, I know what they meant. I was just worded it wrong because I'm distracted by a disco call. That happens. Are the black things on all the Q-tips or a few? I think it's probably one of those things where they're on more of them than they aren't. And let's call them COVID swabs or co-Q, because I know you guys have a character limit, so we'll just call them co-Q. Because the Q-tips and the COVID swabs are made of different material. If something can be sealed, it can be unsealed and resealed. That's true, Brad. That's a good point. We take it for granted that this person is unboxing it right in front of us, but we have to remember perhaps it is a con or a trick. Do you ever interview people on this live stream, like a conversation? No, but I would like to. There's been 2 people that I really like to interview. You saw the AQI this morning, right? We are a lot worse than usual. It was actually violet rather than just red out. Oh my god. I've heard the virus itself is being put into tests to infect people. So, again, for what end, right? Co-Q and regular Q is made of different materials. Yes. Who would I really like to interview? James Randi. No, I would really like to interview people that have had different religious experiences. And also different jobs. I think that would be interesting. I would like to have, just for students, I would like to have like a bunch of videos where I just interview people with different jobs. That's all. Because I feel like in school, we only introduce students to like a handful of jobs. Like you could be a teacher or a doctor or a nurse or a ballet dancer or a pilot or a police officer or a firefighter, period. That's it. Why are those the only things that we introduce? And then we don't expand on that later. So one thing I really like introducing to my students are these jobs that have to do with death. And I'm like, yeah, it's icky. It smells bad. But you always have work. And because it's icky and smells bad, people don't want to do it, so they pay a lot of money. So I always recommend that kind of thing, especially for students that like art and stuff. They could do forensic reconstruction. If they want to do makeup stuff, they can do makeup on corpses that are to be viewed for a funeral before burial. Because I remember one of the things that was so weird was when my sibling, we were at the viewing for my sibling, and this disturbs me significantly. We were very caught up in the fact that the makeup they had put was not the makeup that she would wear. It was just too dark. And I happened, I'm getting my heart is, I happen to have I bought an extra, we have a very different makeup style. and I bought lipstick that would be like lipstick that she would wear, like in honor of her. Sorry. And I just remember putting it on her lips and just how that felt. And the feeling of my dead siblings' lips. I can feel them on my fingers. That is just there. If we would have had a makeup artist for her that just put just that little extra bit of care into it, I would not have that memory. And so I tell that to my students, not to traumatize them, but to let them know how that has deeply harmed me. And that, yeah, you know, you want to be, of course, makeup artist to the stars, right? You want to be doing like Lady Gaga's makeup and stuff. I get it, but that's a lot of people to compete with. Or you could do this other thing that's really, really important, to that last send-off. And it lets you use all kinds of artistic skills. So I really like to introduce that as a thing for them. Yeah. Let's see. So the CoQ and the regular Q are made from different materials. Yes, I think we mentioned, I didn't go into that. So the regular Q-tip is made out of cotton, and this CoQ, the COVID swab, is made out of a synthetic material. All right, if I ever want to interview you, I can. Cool. Yeah, send me a link. Join us on Discord and all that good stuff. Gotta remember that there's people who grew up believing and taught science was bad, therefore 5G towers will kill us all, right? Jobs that deal with death, because someone's got to do it, absolutely. Yeah. They're typing about how 5G towers will kill us while using 5G. Is the viewing this a Catholic thing? We don't do that here. We were not Catholic, so I don't know. It's just like a thing in the US, I think. I don't know. They don't do it here in Korea. Good night, Analyze Atheist. Good night, Terry. Have fun. So let's go ahead and check out these other videos. Another German microscope examination. He starts to breathe warm air on it, and it starts to move. It's still wrapped in plastic, so the effect has nothing to do with airflow, but it could have to do with heat, right?
Also, wir haben hier ein komplett verschweißtes, neues Original-Teststäbchen, heute gekauft in Auerbach.
Okay, so I think he was saying that here we have one of these tests that was bought in, I think it was like a pharmacy.
Apotheke,
yeah.
An der Ecke. Und das Teststäbchen ist made in China, kommt aus China. Wir haben es extra verschweißt gelassen in der Folie, weil wir nicht wissen, was da für ein Dreck drin ist. Ich habe mir ein Mikroskop geholt, weil ich diese Berichte im Internet gar nicht glauben wollte, die da zeigen, diese...
So I think he was saying he saw something on the internet about this, and so he's got one of these things and a microscope just to check.
Morgellons oder wie die heißen. Der André wollte es nicht glauben, dass der Video wahr ist. Er hat gesagt, wir müssen das selber rauskriegen, ob das stimmt. Und wir haben hier dieses Originalteststäbchen in der Folie genommen, haben es hier unter das Mikroskop gelegt. Und das ist der Hammer. Da sind tatsächlich diese,
okay, well, cool. We're getting to see
diese
inside.
Fädchen drinnen zu finden. Morgellons oder wie die heißen. Und ich zeige euch jetzt, ich hoffe es funktioniert, in diese Würmer, die da drauf sind, die Parasiten oder was.
Ich hauche das jetzt
Warte mal, ich muss erst mal den finden, ist gar nicht so einfach.
There it is. Okay, well good. We're already lined up at least.
In dem Moment, wo wir das mit Wärme anhauchen, bewegt sich das.
So he says when it gets warm, it moves.
Wohlgemerkt
Are
außen,
you
das
seeing it
Teststäbchen
move?
nur ist mit Wärme.
I guess. But I almost feel like that air, the heat and the air movement on the plastic is likely making that movement. What do you guys think? Yeah, we don't have this in my culture either, although they look at the body on the way to it being carried to the graveyard. Gotcha. Thank you, Phyllis. That is... But you don't... So after eating Mexican food, if you happen to have a beanie reaction, that does not come out of that area. Yeah, that still comes out of the bum bum. Let's see. For the people to believe the claims about Big Pharma and the government conspiracy, they immediately have to reject anyone who ever lost a family member or friend and then join the medical sciences because of it, right? The Hero Wars puzzle. Okay, cool. Is that this? Good job. Thank you. Good job. I'm glad we at least got that out of the way. Yeah, so I'm just having I don't know. This is not, like, if it was heated and then suddenly it started squirming, okay, that would be interesting, right? But just like the amount of movement you would expect for the package moving on top of it, that to me is not like super exciting, right? Again, the whole idea that I think they're saying it responds to heat is so it's almost like a heat seeker, so that way it makes sure to go burrow into your body's tissues or something. Then something that would be a parasite that is reacting to that heat to seek it is not just going to, like, right? That's like crinkling with the overlaid plastic. If something is a heat seeker, I mean, that's going to be bumping against the plastic. That's going to be trying to get out to find that heat. I mean, that is... I mean, if this is a parasite trying to live, nobody can get Morgellons, because this thing is a lazy thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is not a parasite that wants to live. This is a parasite that's one of, like, the lazy parasites, like, after you've been in college and you're just like, your brain is dead. You got one more exam to go to and you're just like, I'm not moving. I'm not even going to change my clothes. There's some pizza in a box upside down that fell in a corner and perhaps has dust on it. I'm not even going to blow the dust off. I'm just going to take a little piece. Like, you're not concerned about your existence, right? That's this little guy here. If that's the parasite we have to be worried about, I mean, this thing wouldn't even get into the body, right? Once it's in your sinus cavity, it's going to be like... and then you blow it out of your nose and it's done. How could this little lazy guy infect you? That's what I want to know. How could anybody get Morgellons from that level of inactivity, right? This is like, I just want to keep making fun of it. This is this is the one that plagiarizes its essay but puts quotes around it, so they're technically not getting a 0. Like, that's this guy. This guy is not gonna... He's not doing it. Let's see if our friends have responded to us on that comment. No, they have not. All right. Sounds like a bachelor life to me. Barely. I think a bachelor would at least get up and go to the bathroom. This thing is just like urinating in its used lazy boy. Anyone considered doing this experiment yourself? I would love for you guys to do that. That would be awesome. I would love to do it. I just don't know where to get a hold of one. Because again, nobody's giving these out to, like, screw around with them. Do you know what I mean? Like, here, if I want it, I gotta go get it done by a doctor, right? This isn't like, oh, you get a Q test, and you get a test, and you get a test, and let's all just, oh, there's so many, we could just, like, yeah, Morgellons, you know what I mean? Like, it's not, that's why I'm so surprised that they're just so lax with this, you know? And again, it really sets up that mentality. It really sets it up. They're in the masks too, allegedly. Okay, well, what about all the people that make their own mask? Right? That would be one thing if they would say, for example, you need a mask to enter the store. but it can only be this mask made by this company of this type. And that's not the case. If I make my own mask, I can go anywhere, right? So you don't need this quote unquote infected parasitic Morgellons mask. You could just make your own mask. So that's another thing that's not really making a whole lot of sense. Let's see. I'd be too afraid of the squirrels noticing and stopping me before I expose their plans. I am not sure what's going on, Demon Sorrows, but I'm here for it. That's great. Consider yourself lucky. You didn't have to get tested the way the rest of us did. Yeah, I hear it's not thrilling. When anything gets warm, it moves. Which masks? So TD, the thing they're talking about is here. So these masks, remember they kind of zoomed in, and there's a hair here that looks like it's moving a little bit. Now what's interesting is that it looks like it's maybe on the inside of the mask, but when it starts to zoom in, it's not. So that's one thing that's kind of interesting. Remember we talked about in the previous video how when a bug walks across the security camera, it looks like it can be a ghost because it's not focused on the bug, so it almost looks almost translucent. That's kind of what's happening here, I think. So once it gets better focused on this little hair, it becomes obvious that the hair is on the surface. So that was one thing that I noticed immediately. I was like, oh, this looks like it's under the mask. How is it moving? It's just a camera, not a camera trick, but a camera hiccup. So it's not like a deliberate thing. And again, if I was going to be infecting people, remember, let's pretend that you are super ultra CEO, you know, and for some reason you're trying to get people infected with this stuff for, I don't know, some purpose that's going to make you a bunch of money. Then I would make all the masks black and then infect them with like at least a dozen of these, you know? How come when we zoom in all we see is one black moving one, right? One black fiber. Why not make it all black? And then why make the fibers black? Why not have them as white fibers, you know, that are doing the infection? If it's a synthetic parasite, if it's some naturally occurring parasite that happens to be black, then put it in a black mask and mandate that all the masks that are produced have to be black for, I don't know, and then make it up, right? We could just make it up if they believe that COVID is not real or something, and that the amount of heat that the black mask attracts from the sun helps kill something UV exposure, right? And I mean, look at how much more scientific-ish I can make this sound just right off the top of my head. And I think that's part of the problem is bless these people, but they need to think it through slightly more. You know, again, ask those questions. For what purpose, right? For what purpose are they doing this? All right. Next one's English. He's wiping it on some meat. Okay.
Welcome everybody. Today's topic is testing the so-called test. Never mind what the developer, an inventor, Carrie Mullis, had to say about that.
Okay.
Key question today, what do those swabs do? Original, sterile, and clean to make sure everything is.
Now, first of all, let us stop. We're looking for black fibers, and the person is wearing a black fibrous glove. I try to teach my students about not only scientific tests, but for them to be able to look at a test and even without a huge background in science, be able to at least ask important questions. Stuff like this, right? If we're looking for black fibers, we should probably wear latex gloves, not black fibrous gloves. Because of course we're going to find black fibers. Oof, oof. That's it.
As it is designed to be. Whatever that might be.
I mean, you can just see these fibers here. Oh boy. We're touching it? Okay, please don't touch the end of it at least. At least.
Now for a closer look.
Okay.
Cotton swab first for comparison.
Why? They're not made of the same material. Why would we do that? That's like saying, okay, let's investigate this apple, but look at this orange for comparison. Right? Oh, cotton shirt, zoom in, but look at this polyester
And
shirt
now
for
the
comparison.
COVID-19 test swab.
That music is all there. There's one of the black, quote-unquote, filament. But again, we saw the black gloves. I'm not seeing those things move. So if that heat is being created by the light, they would be moving, right? And again, they'd be trying to get to the heat source. Okay, so we're zooming in. I don't see why. Right, it's not the same. Okay, one of them's black.
The reaction to a recommended warming of the material made me twitch as well.
Okay.
Let's get back to that.
I mean, that could just be blowing on it, right?
Up to you, what to make of that. I suggest we move on to try something.
See,
really
there's that answer again. It's up to you what to make of that. No, because we don't have all the information, right? We don't have the information. We didn't see where this blowing was from, where this heat was from. Was it a lighter that they lit a fire next to it and it started twitching? Were they doing and it started moving? Was it I don't know, they put it into a microwave or something? So it's not up to us to make sense of it because we weren't even given all the information. We were barely informed of what was even happening.
Insightful. Test some meat to see what it actually does to you in contact with soft skin.
First of all, what is this meat? Is this like... Is this a salami?
Mucous membrane especially. As you can see, the meat is spotless.
Okay.
Let's go with the cotton first.
Okay.
Remember to check if you can see a difference each time.
Okay, so cotton.
1,000-fold magnification. Clean meat.
Yeah,
Look
sorry, this
exactly,
hurt my eyes.
despite really working it. No trace.
Really working it. Cool. Well, I see a little black thing in there already. Do you
Now
guys...
the coveted swab.
I already saw a little black thing in there.
And just a gentle touch.
Okay, well, we're moving it, right?
You
Now,
can already see the first spikes that have broken off, on their way into the flesh. Let's have a closer look.
I don't know. Did we see
Those
that?
spikes broke off and penetrated the meat.
Okay.
It took little time to realize. They were everywhere. All standing straight up. When looking at the swab, obviously by design.
Well, show us the swab. Let's see what the swab looks like. What will be the purpose of that? Again.
Cells to the left, showing the magnification level, and to the right a spike, that's small. Going straight in. Swab after touching the meat. Barely anything came out with it, but a large of it remained, on end. In the flesh. So to conclude, I cannot tell you what this black twitching fiber is, because I do not know. It could be something that came from the air like in no time and acted the way it did when coming in contact with warm air. Big could.
There's that problem again. We're proposing a question mark as the answer.
Though. But here are the facts. If the task was to harvest a bit of genetic material, a normal cotton swab would do just fine. This spiked swab, however, obviously has a different purpose. It is highly ineffective in harvesting materials compared to wrapped material that is off course. Much better for scraping and collecting genetic material. Unlike, for example, trying to clean your ears with a swab that doesn't get the material out, so much as it leaves its material inside. The coveted swab, however, does sting and break. the exact opposite of what you are looking for when trying to get something out of something. Instead of leaving half your tool, together with the material, you claim to want to...
Okay, but if the black filament is the parasite, then how come the white synthetic pieces are left behind? The black filament is what's being claimed as the parasite, as the Morgellons. So what would be the purpose of leaving this white stuff behind and not the black filament piece, right? So what's the purpose of that? Let's see. Gap year parasites. If they wanted to infect everyone with masks, they would have stockpiled a lot more in preparation. Yes. Yes, that is a mask, yes. I think we could have increased testing if legalized drugs and put a bit of cocaine on the swab, call it a swab and sniff testing, okay? Debunked. Thank you, Nicki Minaj. Those gloves look like rubber to me. There's rubber on some of it, but there were other pieces where it was like, I don't want to say cotton. It almost like a canvas almost, but it was they were very used, and there was like some pieces of that coming off. That's what I had noticed immediately. Could you imagine being cross-examined by Lee in court? Why? Who told you that was real? Yeah, well, my students don't like that sometimes, but it's good because they're learning how to justify something instead of saying this is... Like, I've had students write, this is ridiculous, like as an answer to talk about a religious belief or something, because we have to learn about religion. And so they say, oh, it's a ridiculous belief. And I say, well, you can't just tell me it's ridiculous. You have to explain it. You have to explain the facts in such a way that any reasonable person reading it will think and conclude, gosh, that's ridiculous, without actually telling them it is ridiculous. So you can't tell them the conclusion to draw, but you have to lay out your facts in such a way that they speak about the conclusion, but they don't tell you the conclusion to draw. Skip the video, it's fake. Well, I wanted to touch on what people were concerned with. Even if it's fake, again, like one of the things that we noticed was while they were doing it, they moved it away. Like they moved this camera away from, or this magnifying camera, away from everything. Like what did we just watch, right? That's like saying, okay, now I'm gonna make the cup disappear. Whoa, how did she do that? The cup is totally gone. Oh my gosh, right? We took the camera away from it. Like we took it out of the camera. Why would you possibly do that? It seemed they did it perfectly fine when they put the cotton Q-tip on there, but then when they're doing the one that we really care about, it doesn't do anything. Let's see. Fine filaments, lightest airflow would make it move. Yes, the back of the fiber is off the camera when it moves. You know, I'm not sure what I'm reading. I'm sorry. I'm sure you're explaining it just fine. I'm just not sure what I'm reading. In the UK, I gather nobody died of the conventional flu this winter. I live there. I have worked through 3 lockdowns and wear a mask for 12 hours a day. I think... I'm trying to remember what they said about the flu. It was something like because people are wearing masks so much more, the flu didn't have a chance to spread as much, but... And I know it's like, oh, that sounds so not true, but that's one of the benefits in East Asia, that people are willing to just pop on one of those masks just so easily. It's a really easy way to prevent the additional spread of stuff, and we also have some filaments here, so that's exciting. The background is a kitchen towel. They don't even try to do a human voiceover right. Maybe these people need to go on Penn and Teller. They're taking the Fox News. I'll imply my opinion by making this video and let you decide to agree with me. Right. I don't think I trust the person just on the fact they use Q-tips to clean their ears. It's a no-no to me. Those are mechanic type gloves. I was thinking like motorcycle gloves. Koreans very religious? No. the Koreans that are like Christian, like the type of Christianity that came here is evangelical Christianity. There are some Catholics as well. But overall, the largest percentage of religious is non-religious. Yeah. I'm not sure it's conventional Q-tips. They're the long ones in the ear. They push really hard, then pull out the other side. That's good. How do I give somebody extra credit through the internet? If the filament was moved by airflow, it would sway. Those filaments were contorting. Possibly, but it's also because they were stuck, right? So if it's, oh gosh, how do I show this? Cool. So if it's like this long, but the one end and the other end are stuck on the piece of filament, and so is this piece, this is the only part that can move. So if I blow on it, and it's not really moving for my breath, it'll look like it's contorting because it's stuck to these ends, so they can't like free flow. Do you know what I mean? The tension is too much for them to just flow. But if you had blown really hard, the whole thing would blow away. But because you're just kind of blowing a little bit, it's only moving this part that is free, so it appears to be contorting. Again, I can't prove that it's not, but that's what I would say it is. What I meant is that when the fiber is in full view, it doesn't move. It's manipulated off camera. Gotcha. Just like the coffee mug. Wow. Apparently that was a really good example. Have you ever heard of the No Agenda podcast? They debunk the media and stuff related to COVID. That's interesting, but I'd be scared of no agenda. I don't know. For some reason, when I hear no agenda, I think opposite agenda. I don't know. I would have called it something else, like the Skeptics podcast. I don't know. Maybe I should make my podcast. One person's debunk is another person's conspiracy podcast. Here we are. All right, so what do you think? Are those black strings some kind of accidental contamination of the swabs, some harmless polymer that starts to move by itself under warmer conditions, or could it be something else? Why would this contamination happen on so many swabs? And again, we talked about people. Again, this just seems like a person who doesn't understand about acceptable level of contamination, right? Hey, please not degrade ourselves by peddling the nanotechnologies in my brain. I don't know if it's a psychosis, but it definitely could be. Oh, no. Okay. So we're just going through here. See something extraordinary. The cells will eat the nanowires. Bioelectric therapy. Cool. So it looks like, I mean, even the part that the person is kind of quoting is not helping them. Like, it's saying, we still don't know. And it's like, yeah. So you don't have an adverse aversion to accepting proven scientific facts. I don't know what that, I don't know. I mean, I think this is interesting, but nanotechnology is cool. And it exists, and people are working on it, but that doesn't mean that people are sticking it on the COVID swabs for, again, to what end? And then one I haven't seen was this one I found. Looks like it's 6 minutes. I don't know.
No, let's prioritize the economy over the virus. That's a very similar breakdown, actually.
You can hold all those straight and talk at the same time.
Hello, it's Nicole.
Hi, Nicole.
It's Micah's sister. I wanted to show you guys something. I got a couple COVID tests from a friend, and I wanted to break them down and see what was in these COVID tests. What were they really doing in these COVID tests? Do you see the COVID test says tip wrapped with traditional fiber? Well, this fiber that's on here is the same fiber that comes out of my body. These are nanoparticles. I'm going to show you.
This is the video that we weren't able to see. This is it. Let's see if anybody had written that. Something weird has been inside my right ear since last spring. Something fly out of the same ear of mine. Went crazy. Nothing wrong inside my head, especially moving with my Bluetooth headphones on. Could be electromagnetic reaction. Something inside my ear doesn't like it. There is no bug. It was all checked when we started. Sounds like a nerve. Yeah. I mean, I get those sometimes, and they're just kind of related to the migraines. You've proven my suspicions. Thank you so much. Please do this again with a better camera and setting. You should read the packaging. It says sterile. The swab that comes in and Googles it, tell you sterilized. Then ethylene oxide, which is known to cause cancer in the breast and brain. People started dropping like flies from it. They're deliberately killing us off, and now they want to do it to children. Don't let them do that. Now again, if this is going to be the thing, then I'm going to come up with a better way. You know what I mean? Most horrifying thing I've ever seen. Nano dimensions. What? I wonder how many people think the government is still here to help us. This is insane. Never take the test. Wow. It's so interesting. These devices would navigate the human vasculature, cross the blood-brain barrier, and precisely auto-position themselves with the brain cells. They would wirelessly transmit encoded information from a cloud-based supercomputer. Wow. Okay. That's interesting. Suspicious of the tests. I want to put, okay, as you can see, you can't see any nano thing. Fibers fighting each other. They're electrically loaded to attack each other like your hair. After you put a wool shirt on, you are undermining the freedom movement by showing nothing. I wouldn't touch it with your finger. Smorgasbords of Morgellons, and time to power up the synaptic processes, people. I like that. I like that. Get your brain working. The only way to be free is by Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus Christ, the Messiah. Time is short, everybody. Repent now. Holy Ghost. Read Matthew 5, 6, 7 whole chapters to know his teachings and to be saved. I was not saved when I read them. Do not take the vaccine no matter what. Do not change your DNA and become GMO because of this DNA editor vaccine. I mean, we're all GMO'd, aren't we? I knew it. Everyone was born with an active pineal gland. It's time to go. I want to ask a question, but I don't want them to be upset because I want to have a discussion and I don't want to say anything upsetting that would make people upset. You know what I mean? What could we say? So my question is, to what end? But yeah, let's see. Maybe, why do you think they're doing this? Do you think that would be good enough? Why do you think they're doing this? Let's see. It's the same with people who put the Patriot and family in such a group name, usually the opposite, right? My hand twitched reaching for dinner. It must be the government trying to make me reach for the vegetables. Do they hit cannabinoid receptors? I have no idea. Lee's pineal gland is way too active. She's asking too many questions, I know. It's been totally decalcified, you guys. What if they're what Jesus used to heal people and they're spreading for his return to fly you to heaven? I think, Demon Sorrows, I think that's a really good, followed by prove me wrong. Now, I think that's actually a really good counter. The reason is because you are making a statement that is so, like, diametrically opposed to theirs and just as unfounded and unprovable. And I think that's really good. What if we, I think we're just gonna go with that. Why do you think they're putting these in there? And where do you think the pre-COVID Morgellons came from? Thanks. That's good, right? Let me know if that sounds confrontational. Cool. this was about the nanobots. What's interesting about the Morgellons is not only does this show up, but like the other stuff that shows up under this, it has nothing to do with like scientific discovery or anything. You know? It's California, 78, COVID vaccine, suddenly dies of something else. Right? Okay. There's a lot of German results. Is Morgellons more popular in Germany? I wonder. Okay, so we got another mask. And again, this like, of course it's gonna have other colors on there. Yeah, of course. Especially on a little kid's mask. And oh, again, we're not seeing anything, right? It's too zoomed in. We have no idea what this is. What I also find interesting is one of the reasons I think it's CG, same with that first one that we watched, is because it's not just moving, it's like extending, it's growing significantly. And when you have a parasite, like a leech or something, it's kind of chubby, and then when it stretches, it gets thinner and longer. But this is not doing that. It's not like there's like a chubby pocket here and then it stretches out or something when it's heated up, quote unquote. It's thin and it's long, and suddenly it just gets longer, and that's why I think it's actually it could be just computer generated poorly, because that doesn't look like a normal movement. Like, it doesn't look like, it looks like somebody accidentally went too much, you know. And this, again, if this was actually a moving thing, why is the rest of it not moving? Why is it just the top moving and the whole rest of it doesn't move? If it was heat seeking and trying to find an entrance into your face, for example, the butt end of it would have moved, right? This whole bottom portion would have moved. Instead, we're just getting like a little bit of movement. This is not behaving like a guided guided technology. Do you know what I mean? And it's definitely not behaving like a parasite. Yeah. That's why I think it's just... Black fiber found that Morgellons, when met with water, will turn into... Wow. Facebook groups. Oh, dear. When met water will turn into parasites, and entering our bodies will arise many diseases. Write this translation. I mean, it's all right. And again from Germany. I wonder why. All right. Let's see what you guys had to say, and then we're going to head on out. Let's see. I'm not entirely sure they thought enough to ask, well, why would they want to do this? Yeah, I don't think they did. I mean, there's a general distrust of the government, which I agree with, for sure. We should always not automatically distrust them, but meet them with skepticism. You know, if they say, hey, this is a good bill, no, read the bill. You know what I mean? Don't just accept it. But don't assume that it's not, and then not read the bill and just assume they're lying to us. That's what I'm saying. So just meet it with appropriate skepticism. If they say something is good or bad, read it yourself, you know, see what it is. And then based on your, you know, what you believe the government is there for, you know, is it good and meets those requirements, or is it bad and it goes against what you want from the government? But it's this idea that it's almost like a cartoon villain, you know, that they're just doing bad things just to do bad things. They're infecting us with parasites just to infect us with parasites. and then ... profit somehow, you know, and it just doesn't. I mean, when people were talking about early on about how COVID, some of my students asked me, you know, teacher, do you think that COVID could be deliberately put out by the government, like the Chinese government, or somebody else's government, like the American government, to hurt the Chinese people? And I said, you wouldn't do that with a virus. You would do that with like flesh-eating bacteria, because like a virus, yeah, you gotta hope your immune system is good enough to get over it. Cool. A bacteria, no. My cats or the government. Bacteria, you will, you need treatment. If you don't get treatment, you die, right? And then one of the treatments for something like flesh-eating bacteria, so if you get it on your skin, is one of the old style treatments. If you can't get to a hospital or afford medicine, or if too much of this antibiotic was used and now this area in the country is totally out of it, the way you do it is you got to cut off like your hand, okay? So if I get it in my hand or my foot, it's got to come off. That's the only way for me to stop this infection and stop my death. That means, how am I going to work my job? Now the government has to take care of me. So the government is spending more money supporting disabled people because of that. That's a great way for the government to lose money, isn't it? If I wanted to hurt the Chinese economy and like hurt the Chinese government, I would do that. Why a virus that, as long as everybody stays inside when they're sick, it can't spread? Right? That's so ineffective. Why would I spend so much effort on that? That just doesn't make sense to me. I still haven't gotten vaccinated. I keep flip-flopping as to whether I do or don't want it. It's so frustrating, to be honest. My mom got her first one. She's just fine. But this whole you need 2 vaccines just seems odd to me. That's not without precedent. Okay, so remember with like hepatitis, you need more than 1 vaccine. So it's not without precedent. Yeah, not without precedent. The other thing about do want it or don't want it, that's going to be a cost benefit ratio. So the risk versus the reward. I will say that yes, there is a chance you can die from it. Okay. Assuming this image is you in your profile picture, you don't appear to be very old, and I don't know, perhaps you've had some kind of immunocompromised state, but a lot of people that are immunocompromised are ready to get the vaccine, so let's assume that you're not. If we use SARS-1 as our thing to look to as to what SARS-2 is able to do. SARS-1, unfortunately, left people with a lot of, long-term respiratory distress. So things like even 18 months after the fact, people were having a hard time walking for 6 minutes. We're not talking like a full sprint. We're talking walking for 6 minutes. Because it was so hard for them to breathe. It damaged their lungs long term. Additionally, it was something like 64% were so ill that they ended up getting traumatized during that illness. And they were also developing chronic problems. And so I have a Discord where we talk about living with chronic illness. And we just vent about it, whatever. One new person had joined because they ended up catching a chronic disease from COVID. So they had COVID, they got over it, and then they got this chronic problem from that. I would never wish my medical condition on anyone. And if you could prevent this by wearing a mask and social distancing and getting a vaccine, I really, really, really recommend it. Is there a chance that the vaccines might be potentially dangerous long term? Sure. But at the same time, vaccines are something that we have studied and researched very well, and there's no reason for us to reasonably assume that this vaccine is going to be wildly different and somehow create long-term problems in a significant portion of people. So the thing that I do encourage people to remember is that, yes, the COVID death rate is higher than something like influenza, but that's not what we should be focusing on. What we should be focusing on is something called long COVID or post-SARS or long SARS. And this is something that we already know happens. And it happened in about 33% of people. They had this long-term damage to their lungs, not only in their ability to breathe, but their ability to oxygenate their blood. So any kind of muscle movements and stuff, they got very tired very quickly. Now for you to hear, oh, about 3% of people can die from this, or about up to 4% of people can die. Yeah, but those are like mostly older people, mostly immunocompromised people. That doesn't sound like a big fear. Like, oh, it's nothing that I should really worry about. But to hear that 33% of people that survive end up with these long-term complications, is that something you want to take a chance with? And then for people with like depression, anxiety, PTSD, and other chronic illness, that was 64% of the people that survived. Is that something we want to risk? I can't make that decision for you. I don't know what other issues you have physically, mentally, that might be preventing you from wanting to get this. But hopefully now this can help you make a decision about it. So I would definitely recommend looking up long SARS or post SARS. Look for earlier stuff from like 2010. Of course, nothing from 2020, 2021. That's the stuff right now, and it's kind of hard. I understand the hesitation of, well, we haven't had SARS-2 for very long. How can we judge long term? But remember, SARS-1 back in 2003. So we were able to definitely look at that long term. I know what it's like to not be able to walk for 6 minutes at a time sometimes. Thankfully for me, it's not a daily thing, but it appears that way for people that get this. And what I have is bad enough. I would not wish this upon anyone, let alone something even worse. So yeah, I can't, of course, make that decision for you, but hopefully that can give you some more ideas. And again, please look it up. This is something personal. This is about your body. It's about stuff going into your body. Of course, you definitely want to look it up. So good stuff. Let's see. What else are we saying here? Equivalent to a booster shot to ensure immunity. Right. I've seen the parasitic worms that move less than this. Perhaps. I think those are outside of the body. But the weird thing I'm noticing is that only half of it is moving significantly, and then the other half is just not moving whatsoever. That's why it seemed very strange to me. When you get a parasite that's like barely wiggling, gotcha. Totally agree. That absolutely happens, especially outside of the host. But for something outside of the host to be introduced to heat, like as a whole, but only a piece of it suddenly reacts and wiggles and stretches while the other half totally doesn't, to me that seems very strange. Now, I'm not a parasitologist, so because I don't know if that's the word, but so maybe that totally happens. But for me, that just seems really unnatural. Yeah, that's not like anything I've seen. It would move towards them, not sideways. Yeah, that's the other thing we were kind of mentioning maybe before you were here, Demon Sorrows, is that it's kind of wiggling weird as opposed to trying to get to this heat. So that I thought was a bit weird. The long boy makes me uncomfortable whether he's real or not. Yeah, I know. When it first happened, I still got the kind of feeling. This is one rabbit hole you don't want to go down. A friend from Germany was telling me about the conspiracy theories people had during the second lockdowns in Europe. Oh dear. Yeah, Germany seems to have some interesting ones. If the super rich need our help to set up Mars colonies, why would they kill us now? Don't these people need butlers? I'm not sure if that's a joke, but also it's kind of Yeah, kind of a good point. I mean, for the conspiracy type things. Let's see. Hello, Test. How are you doing? I subscribe to Jesse102. German is covered toxic German stuff we don't hear in England because England has toxic cover. Trust me. Oof. Let's see. In my mid-30s. Yes, that's me. Okay. This is really relevant discussion. I'm glad we're having. I am too. Can you link to that Discord for chronic illness? I can. Wearing a mask is not a political statement. Not wearing one is. I don't even know if not wearing a mask is a political statement. I would say it's a statement of I suppose it is a political statement. Yeah. All vaccines have a small percentage of people who have a bad reaction. They would be ditched. They would have ditched the method a long time ago if it was worse than disease. Right. And I think that's another thing. You know, nothing is completely without risk. But as far as things to inject into your body go, vaccines are very safe compared to pretty much a lot of other stuff. Yeah. Even if it had turned out that masks didn't help, I'd still be fine with that. I do it out of love and care for others. The anti-mask era is just for egotistical jerks. Yeah. I mean, it's not like the masks don't work, which is so weird. Like, we recognize that we want our doctors to wear them when they're in surgery, right? We recognize they work then. That's what I thought was so strange. Signostic, I can just... I'll send you a direct link real quick before I forget. And then, for the rest of y'all, I think I'm going to head out. Let's see. PSY. Nope, you're not there. That's okay. I think I'm gonna head out. I'm feeling a bit just too out of my head to have more of a discussion. This is easier at work. I mean, obviously it sucks, but it's still easier at work because I have stuff that I'm gonna say. I have a lesson plan, and it's just kind of a thing that I go through. If a student asks a question, yeah, we go through it as well. But this, what we're doing now, it's like totally unscripted, right? And so to have to keep maintaining this level of unscriptedness is a bit difficult. So, giving me some things to think about, especially this idea of perhaps going to make a... Let's see if I can find you. So... yeah, maybe making some kind of live or podcast or something. So, Signostic, I sent you the group. Please feel free to join. If you want to join Signostic, you don't have to have it diagnosed. You just have to be living with something that is very difficult to live with. We don't judge, but like we're not going to ask you your medical history or anything. And you live in Norway, but for a lot of people in the US, they just don't have access to medical care. They just know, hey, my body hurts all the time and I don't feel like I used to a year ago. Suddenly I feel like I've aged 50 years. So they're just there too. All right. Thanks for the aliens and COVID discussion. Yes, I'm glad you guys joined us. Chris, please feel better. And yeah. Bye, guys. Have a good one. Hope this was interesting. Bye-bye.